Welcome to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I am Tammi Mack. It's Friday, and tonight we are talking about Senator Lindsey Graham's comments about Herschel Walker, what went down on Twitter after Elon Musk officially took over the social media platform, and also why people are asking for an apology from Kyrie Irving. Get ready for another round of the political and trending highlights of the week. Please welcome my Friday co-host, activist and radio personality, Dominique DePrima. Hi, Dominique.
Hi, Tammi Mack.
Political analyst Ed Sanders. Hi, Ed.
Tammi, happy Friday.
Comedian and filmmaker Alicia Cooper. What's up, Lily?
Hey, Tammi.
And the president and the founder of Oleka Management Consulting, Dr. O.J. Oleka. Hi, Dr. O.J.
Hi, Tammi Mack. Good to see you.
Good to see you all, too. So let's see. What are we going to kick things off with? How about Lindsey Graham? On Wednesday, Senator Lindsey Graham and Georgia U.S. Senate candidate Herschel Walker interviewed with Fox News' Sean Hannity. And it appeared that Graham tried to portray Walker as the GOP's token black friend. Take a look.
They're beating all of our guys up, but what is it about this guy? He changes the entire narrative of the left. We're a party of racists, Sean. Me and you're a racist. The Republican Party's racist. Well, what happens when the Republican Party elects and nominates Herschel Walker, an African-American black Heisman Trophy winner, right? Olympian. It destroys the whole narrative.
We would have preferred you grab Carl Lewis. How about that? Are Senator Graham and other conservatives using Herschel Walker's skin color for their own political gain? Your thoughts, Dr. Oleka?
Well, no, they're talking about the Republican nominee for the United States Senate in Georgia. I think it is absolutely fair game for Republican senators to support a Republican nominee for the United States Senate. And Lindsey Graham is correct. The Democrats and the left do not want to see Herschel Walker elected to the United States Senate. If he were to be elected, you'd have Senator Herschel Walker, you'd have Senator Tim Scott, who would make two black Republican senators in the United States Senate, which would give them more, them being the Republican Party, more black U.S. senators than Democrats. This is not a narrative that the Democrats want. And Lindsey Graham talked about it in that interview. He mentioned John James, who's a candidate for the state house. He's a black Republican, or for the U.S. House, a black Republican in Michigan, and also Tim Scott. The Democrats don't want to see black folks elected to the Republican Party under the platform because it absolutely tears at their narrative. I've been hearing that in my life for the past 10, 15 years.
Ed?
Well, I mean, look, I think Lindsey Graham is laying out why Republicans actually nominated Herschel Walker. I think it's a surprising nomination to most in the nation. I mean, when you look and have followed Herschel through his political journey here, I struggle to wonder what Senate committee that Lindsey Graham would actually nominate Herschel to sit on. I think he struggled with his grasp of policy throughout this whole campaign. And if this was really about defending the Republican Party from being the racist party, well, look, one nomination isn't going to do it. You got to look at the body of work that the Republican Party has had, particularly the body of work of Republicans in the South. And when you start to look at the state of Georgia in particular, we've seen nothing but systematic disenfranchisement from the Republican Party, and along with a whole litany of other things where the party has been hostile to African Americans. So this is just theatrics from my standpoint.
Theatrics, you say, Alicia?
I agree. And the fact that he said he was African American and black, that just turned me off. Like, I can't stand Lindsey Graham. He's always frothing. He's always rabid, and he never gets called angry for some reason. We always know what their playbook is. We knew after Trump lost that they were going to start putting black faces in white spaces. We already knew the game plan. And to pick Herschel Walker, you could have picked a different black man. This is absolutely ridiculous. We know what it is. We've seen it. We already read the playbook before they even got to the game. And we knew what they were going to do. And this is exactly what they had planned on doing. And he wanted to say, you can't call us racist because we're standing behind this man. And like Dr. O.J. said in the last show, they're standing behind him because he's going to vote every way they tell him to vote.
I do find it interesting that they're rallying behind Herschel Walker, but didn't rally behind Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown. I mean, Dominique?
She's not their black friend. She's not their black friend, Tammi Mack. There's only certain friends that are black friends. I mean, look, Republican or white supremacist or racist, pretty much synonymous. They have always had proximity to blackness. That's not any proof that you're not a racist. Just because Ted Cruz dated somebody black in high school, or Thomas Jefferson fathered some children with one of his enslaved persons, doesn't mean you're not a racist. It means you know some black people. You might even own some. You might run some. You might be the puppeteer for some. But that doesn't mean that you're not supporting a white supremacist agenda, as the Republican Party has been doing, as they have moved further and further to the extremes, which we see with the extreme court, which we see with these, Looney Tunes candidates that they're running in several states. They are the party that doesn't want black people to vote. So they might let you sit in an interview and be their new best friend to make a point about their party. But if you look at the policies, the disenfranchisement of black voters, the anti-blackness in budgeting and everywhere else that matters, this Republican Party is clearly the party of white supremacy.
That's just factually untrue. It is factually untrue. Let's look at Georgia as
Why am I not surprised that you're saying
I remember that when this panel, my esteemed colleagues were saying how Georgia voting policies are going to be Jim Crow 2.0. You had President Biden say that. You had Stacey Stolen Election Abrams say that. And now all of a sudden you have record numbers in Georgia. More people have voted in the early returns than they did in 2018 before the laws were changed. Jim Crow 2.0 is not a real thing. Also, we talk about the policies of Georgia, quote unquote, disenfranchising black people. They've had Republican leadership, Republican governors that have allowed Atlanta to soar as a city with black owned businesses. And what did the Democrats do? Democrats called on people to get out of Georgia, called on people to ban going to Georgia and Atlanta for any business opportunities, putting black businesses out of work. But yet, just because you are black and because you are a Republican, you're a quote unquote white supremacist. But if you vote for Democrats who say that the election was stolen, if you vote for Democrats,
we're not. See how he did that? We're not the ones saying the election is stolen. Newsflash, OJ, don't try to pull a Trump Jedi mind trick on us. We're not the ones telling the big lie. That would be you. And the issue about Jim Crow 2.0, we'll see how the election plays out, because that's election denial. That's overturning of free and fair elections. That's packing of these agencies and positions that decide whether or not we accept election results. And we were going to have to wait till November 9th for that.
Hillary Clinton said
the turnout that you're talking about is accountability.
Hold that thought, Dr. Oleka. Hold that thought, Dr. Oleka. Go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, the turnout that you're talking about is really built on accountability. I mean, you referenced Stacey Abrams, but let's not forget the organization she founded actually had to sue the Republican standard bearer in Georgia around the number of people. And I think it was something, north of 30,000 votes that he summarily, registered voters that he summarily tossed off the rolls last time. The standard bearer of the Republican Party in Georgia has repeatedly tried to disenfranchise African-American voters in the state for his own political gain. And despite that, the Democrats have been able to elect 2 U.S. senators and expect to elect the governor this time.
And this is what James Baldwin was talking about when he said, "I'm not your Negro," but apparently Herschel Walker is.
Again, these things are patently false untruths. If you look at Georgia and you look at what has happened there with the elections, Stacey Abrams' organization did try to sue. The last lawsuit that she was in, she lost. And her organization paid some of her closest top friends and aides, and now she's under investigation for those very kinds of lawsuits. This is not a good candidate in Georgia. What you all are saying about Republicans in Georgia is simply untrue. But look, I understand.
She's not under investigation.
What you all need to say.
That's factually untrue. She's not under investigation. Because she lost a lawsuit doesn't mean it wasn't righteous for her to bring it up. And clearly, her organization efforts, along with people in organizations like Black Lives Matter and LaTosha Brown, have made the difference for that turnout that you're bragging about.
We'll see when she loses by 10 points.
Well, podcast host and UFC commentator Joe Rogan predicts massive success for the Republican Party in the 2022 midterm elections. Rogan said the red wave that's coming is going to be like the elevator doors in The Shining. I have to agree with Joe Rogan on this. It does seem to be that, but he's not saying anything that's new, though. It oftentimes happens that when there is a Democrat president, that the Senate becomes Republican and vice versa. Dominique?
Yeah, I mean, okay, you're psychic, Joe Rogan. Wow, I'm so impressed. I mean, If it's a wave, we'll see. I don't know. I would think it would be very sad if people would forget the lessons of Roe v. Wade being overturned, the lessons of this extreme court, and the lessons of the economy too. When Republicans take the majority in the House and the Senate, they will start to work to repeal and shrink Social Security, Medicare, the thing that is a real safety net for our country. So if you're worried about inflation and worried about the economy, you definitely want to stay with Democrats, because Republicans are the ones that give money to the rich in the form of tax cuts, and they're the ones that want to get rid of the safety net for seniors, which is Social Security, which is not an entitlement. It is an earned benefit, and they just want to do with it what they want to do with it. Those are economic issues. Yeah, okay, they could take the House and the Senate. I hope they don't. I hope that the American people stay with the momentum we saw when people realized just how extreme and out of touch our Supreme Court currently is.
Dr. Oleka?
Well, not only do the American people not agree with what you're saying, they don't believe what you're saying, Dominique. They look at Democrats, they look at their policies, they don't like them. In November, they're going to vote them out.
That's typically how it happens. We'll see. Ed?
I mean, look, we're all acknowledging that the midterms typically have a rebound against the party who controls the presidency. I don't know that I'm going to call it a wave. I do expect some significant losses for Democrats in the House. But when you start to look at it just from a starting basis, there was a slim majority of Democrats in the House to begin with. So, from a historic standpoint, I don't expect this to rival, say, Obama's loss in say, 2010. So,
Alicia?
Yeah, and if it does happen, a lot of people are going to be voting against their own best interests. And a lot of things have been hung around the necks of the Democrats. We're supposed to be soft on crime and soft on immigration and soft on whether transgenders can compete with women in sports. They've hung all this stuff around our necks. And it might work out in their favor. I'm just hoping that it's not a wave. I'm hoping that it's not a wave, and I'm hoping that people come out and vote, because like Dominique said, the country fares better under Democratic leadership because we look out for the little people versus the corporations and the 1%ers.
Let's take a look at this wave of commercials that I got coming up. We'll be back. Back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I'm Tammi Mack, and the business of being black today is or are the political and trending highlights of the week. So let's get down to business. The use of the N-word on Twitter has spiked over 500% just days after Elon Musk purchase and takeover of the social media platform. Many celebrities, including LeBron James, have called out Musk because of it. James tweeted, "I don't know Elon Musk, and to be honest, I could care less who owns Twitter, but I will say that if this is true, I hope he and his people take this very seriously because this is scary. So many damn unfit people saying hate speech is free speech." Elon Musk did say since the takeover, he's done nothing in reference to the policies of Twitter. So why do you think this is happening, Dr. Oleka?
Well, I mean, I don't think anybody can be sure why it is happening. As a researcher, I'd like to know where those tweets are coming from. What are they about? Who's using that particular word and why? I mean, I don't think anybody on this panel likes the usage of that word, especially in a form where people could use it to incite violence, to say negative things. But again, you've got to be careful here in terms of how you protect certain levels and kinds of speech online. Obviously, hate speech slurs are not protected under the First Amendment in most instances, but just looking at one metric and saying, well, now Twitter is all of a sudden this awful, rotten place, as if it wasn't an awful, rotten place 2 weeks ago, I think would be short-sighted. My Twitter feed hasn't changed. The people that I communicate with and the people that I follow haven't been using this word anymore. So again, I don't know where it's coming from, but it's certainly not something I support.
I myself have not used Twitter in quite some time. So I find it fascinating that people even recognize that there has been an increase in the word. Alicia?
Yeah, well, I did my own little test once he took over. I went on there and I started tearing people up, and I wasn't getting suspended for it anymore. So I'm actually excited.
So we know where it's coming from then, is what you're trying to say.
Right. That's it. Yeah. Look, don't look any further, Dr. Oleka.
I've been in Twitter jail a whole lot, and I'm enjoying the fact that I'm not on suspension anymore because I'm getting it in. Because what would happen is somebody would attack me and I would respond and I get suspended. And I'm like, this isn't right. Did you read what was just said to me? And so now I haven't been suspended since Friday, and he might not have made a whole lot of changes because he's busy laying people off right now.
Right, exactly. He's like, I don't have time for the policies right now. Let me get rid of all these people first. Ed?
I mean, listen, there's going to be a lot of conversation this week around what you can and cannot say on social media and publicly. And Twitter is one of the leading social media platforms. Elon Musk's takeover of it, and to your point, the subsequent Musk era there is starting off poorly. I think one, the number of layoffs that he's reporting out today, and then two, this perception amongst Twitter users that he's going to relax the policies and allow for more hate speech to flow on Twitter. He hasn't come out to combat that yet. And, that poses some problems as we start to move forward. You get a chance to see a lot of negative behavior from particularly the American people, right? And, this is one of the scary parts. I think that's what LeBron's tweet was about, is that you're really starting to see a lot of hate bubbling up. And we'll see where it goes from there. Hopefully he has a rethinking of his policies.
Yeah, my thing is, if it means that much to whoever uses Twitter, then perhaps this is where the cancel culture can work, and you can cancel Twitter altogether, if it means that much. Dominique?
Well, I think we got to wait and see. I mean, I think a lot of people are doing what Alicia's doing. I've been suspended since Friday. They're testing the boundaries because there's a new owner. That said, the NAACP and others have met with Elon Musk and asked him to take a serious look at this, and he claims that he will. But this is coming from a guy who is facing the biggest lawsuit against a private company in the state of California history for the racism at the factories that he owns of Tesla. So I take that with a grain of salt. I mean, where people were regularly called the N-word employees, where they had a special section of the factory floor that was called the plantation. So I really don't have a lot of faith that he's going to rein this in. That said, I'm glad he did take the meeting and that the conversation is there. I think the layoffs are also concerning for another reason, which is a bunch of those people will be content moderators. So who is moderating the content if you fire everybody? And of course, AOC, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, was complaining this morning that she irritated Elon Musk, and all of a sudden her notifications were gone and her Twitter page was eviscerated. So if he's going to be Trumpian about it and use it for his petty squabbles, like an emperor, it's a private company, so he can do that if he wants to, but it's going to be problematic if your defense of the N-word is freedom of speech.
Well, it's interesting because people were getting on Elon Musk because he was going to charge $20 a month for the blue check verification. And then he decided $8 a month for the blue check verification. And then after people complained about the $8 a month for the verification blue mark check, he said, complain all you want. It's still $8 a month. So I got a feeling this is going to be much of the same. Complain all you want. You can use the N-word. T-Pain appeared on The Daily Show with Trevor Noah to discuss why he talks openly about anxiety and depression. He said, I love being vocal about things like that because it wasn't set in the blueprint before me. Everybody was always, it's all about blinging. It's all about having a bunch of money and having all this. And nobody tells you about the down. Everybody tells you about the up. T-Pain has previously said that his mental health issues began when Usher told him that his use of auto-tune ruined music. So what are your thoughts on T-Pain? He is a very sensitive guy, isn't he? Anyone can have this one. Go ahead, Alicia.
I don't know about the blame Usher for all your woes, but I mean, like, look,
you didn't know about that?
I didn't know about that. That
he ran into Usher on an airplane, and Usher walked up to him and said, "Man, thanks for ruining music."
I mean, look, I don't. You got me laughing at someone's feelings about their depression, and that I don't mean to do that. When we start looking at how we are viewing mental health now, it's important. I think, we've seen it in the athletic world with Simone Biles, Naomi Osaka. I think people are now, particularly coming out of the COVID pandemic, you're much more in tune to how you're perceiving the world and any depression that might be about, setting in on your life. And that's important. I think for African Americans in particular, too long we have pushed those feelings and that understanding really deep down, almost to our own detriment. And it's important that we do have that conversation, that we can have that conversation freely.
Yeah, I love that you said that. And I think the reason why we've had to hold on to those feelings internally is because we have to remain strong and we have to keep fighting. And every day for African Americans is a fight just to get through the day, let alone to get through your career that's filled with white people telling you what to do. Or, it really is. It really is exhausting. And so you really don't have the time or the privilege actually to deal with your true emotions because you're just trying to get through life. Dominique?
Yeah, and I think it's important to, for T-Pain and others that Ed has mentioned, to be transparent about what's going on with their own mental health, especially coming out of pandemic. We have so many young people who are dealing with mental health crises. The rate of suicide among African American children is going up. And so I think when people like T-Pain, people in the public eye are willing to speak openly about it and destigmatize it, maybe it makes it easier for some of those young folks to go and get help.
Yeah, let's hope so. Alicia?
Yeah, and in the entertainment industry, as David Arnold was famous for saying, it ain't for the weak. This is you have to have a strong coat of armor to deal with everything that's going to come your way when you become a public figure. And I know that hurt him. I mean, the word ruin, that's a strong word for somebody to tell you ruined something. So and I don't know if Usher was an idol of his before, but what they tell you, never meet your heroes because you're going to be disappointed. And if he was a hero, that's a second level of gut punch. And I'm glad he's getting the mental health help that he needs. And I'm glad that we as a community are starting to speak more openly about it. It's very helpful to do, to get, if you need medications, get them. If you need to speak to somebody, speak to somebody. We've spent too much time holding everything in. And I'm especially glad that Black males are starting to do this too, because it shouldn't have been stigmatized to begin with.
Yeah, well, you have to prioritize things when you're Black, right? That's a part of being Black. Dr. Oleka, we'll get your comments when we return, or we might just move on, Dr. Oleka. We'll be back. Back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I'm Tammi Mack. Hey, soulmates, I want to talk to you real quick about Hover, one of our amazing sponsors. So have you ever thought about starting your own business, creating a brand, sharing your wealth of knowledge with the world, or even using your years of experience to create something for yourself? Well, don't look any further. Hover wants to help you take the first step in getting your ideas off the ground. If you have a brand that you have always dreamt of building or a business you want to take online, the first step is finding your domain name. Hover makes this super simple with a clear and straightforward user experience, easy to use tools, and a truly amazing customer support team. It's never too late to step up to the plate and share what you have to offer. Getting online has helped thousands of people around the world reach new heights with their businesses. You will also be able to choose from over 400 extensions like .shop, .tech, .art, or you can stick with the classic .com. You'll be able to find the perfect domain name for your business, one that's memorable, relevant, and boost your brand. You can buy a domain, set up custom email boxes, and point it to your website in just a few clicks. Yeah. If you ever run into trouble, help is just a phone call or a chat away. Hover is a trusted and popular choice amongst millions of people launching any kind of brand or business. Secure, simple, and reliable. If you're ready to get your idea off the ground with the perfect domain name, I know my hashtag goals are a bigger, better brand, and it's always a good thing to get a boost. So make it happen right now. Head to hover.com/Tammi Mack to get 10% off your first Hover purchase. Again, that's hover.com/Tammi Mack to get 10% off. Now, that we've handled that business, let's get back to the business of being Black with Tammi Mack on Fox Soul. Welcome back to the business of being Black with Tammi Mack. I am Tammi Mack, and today the business of being Black are the political and trending highlights of the week. Dr. Oleka, I know you are a huge T-Pain fan, so I could not let you let us have this discussion without your input about T-Pain sharing his depression publicly.
Well, I think the important thing about T-Pain and what he shared was his vantage point. I mean, T-Pain is an expert in his field. He's one of the most talented artists in the hip hop industry. And the fact that he said it was another talented artist in the R&B industry, Usher, that kicked off his stint with mental health, I think is important. People who are great in their field need to demonstrate vulnerability for people coming up after them to show them you can be great but still have challenges on your own. I think it's a good thing. I think it's a healthy thing. And I'm glad that T-Pain has done what he did.
Yeah, very glad. ESPN Stephen A. Smith claims that he is underpaid because he is Black. Smith has been in the industry for years and seemingly has several assignments at ESPN other than his show First Take. He earns about $8 million per year under his current contract with ESPN. And he also has a $4 million per year production contract with the company, making Smith's total compensation $12 million each year from ESPN per The Athletic. According to The Athletic, he is one of the highest paid broadcasters in sports. What are your thoughts on Smith's claims? He's number 7. He's number 7. I think Tony Roma comes in the top 10 and other sportscasters that I think we all know. Al Michaels comes in the top 10, the highest being about 30 million. Stephen A. falls at the 12 million. Is he getting less because he is a Black man, Dominique?
Well, you know what? Any of us, well, maybe except for OJ, any of us would be happy to have that 8 or 12 million a year, right? So, but what doesn't make sense is to compare it to our own experience, because he's comparing himself to the field and what industry standards are. This is what Monique got in trouble for when she went toe to toe with Netflix. She ended up winning, and she now has a special, and she got paid her rate. So sometimes, you know, it pays to stand up. We all know that in business, you don't get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate. So go on, Stephen, go and get you your money.
So did he get what could he have negotiated what he deserved, Dominique?
Well, look, we know that Black people are valued less, not just in society as a whole, but specifically in the entertainment industry, and specifically paid less. You can see pay equity problems with movie stars across the board. This is what Viola Davis was talking about on Instagram. It is a problem. We are paid less for the same work. And that's why, you know, it might sound crazy when we hear it because he's making 12 million, but I'm sure he can make his case, and I hope he gets paid. I hope he gets paid what is equitable in comparison with other people that do the same thing he does and have the same kind of rating success that he continuously has.
Stephen A. Smith said, we are still Black in this country. We don't trust this country in terms of mediocrity always. We know the bottom line is that just like women are underpaid compared to male counterparts, Blacks are underpaid compared to white counterparts. And he went on to say, and so when you look at it from that perspective, and of course people look at me, I'm not talking about me, even though I got news for you, I am underpaid compared to some people on television, what they get paid. But that's a subject for another day. I ain't apologizing for that to a damn soul. I am underpaid. Having said all that, it ain't about me. It did sound like it was about him. Go ahead, Alicia.
Yeah, I mean, he's exactly right. I'm never going to tell anybody that they shouldn't know their own worth. We know in this entertainment, I know I'm underpaid in this entertainment industry. I see some of my colleagues and counterparts and the things that they're getting and the opportunities that they're being given that I'm not even in the running for. And it's unfortunate, but it is the case. And I'm not going to tell that man he's incorrect. He's talking about his field, a field that he knows way better than the average person would know. He knows who's getting what, how they're getting what. You know, I have so many experiences in my own life, just empirical data that lets me know that exactly what he's saying is correct. And it's unfortunate, but we're underpaid and undervalued in every area, not just the entertainment industry.
Yeah, and being in the broadcast industry, I can attest to that, living in Los Angeles, California as well, in a market where the pay should be extremely higher than that of other markets. Sometimes I find it equivalent to Mississippi. Go ahead, Dr. Oleka.
I mean, if you want to come down to Kentucky, that LA money down here will probably buy you about 10 houses. So you're welcome to come down to Kentucky whenever you would like. On Stephen A. Smith, I mean, look, if he says he's underpaid, that's a conversation, as Dominique said, he's got to take up with his employer. But I do think it's important that when people say these things, that we look at apples to apples as opposed to apples to oranges. Stephen A. Smith is an entertainer on ESPN. He's not a former long-time professional athlete. You mentioned Tony Romo, who played in the NFL, who was with the Cowboys, who now does commentary and also calls those games from a perspective of being an expert. Stephen A. Smith calls halftime. He's got his show. He's got a number of different things. I don't know if you look at his specific role as an entertainer who does halftime games for the NBA, who's got his own show, First Take, who does some of the other commentary that he does. I don't know anybody else that does what he does and gets paid more than him. Again, I haven't seen the full list, but when you look at what he actually provides to sports commentary, I'd be shocked if anybody doing his specific bit gets paid more than him. Again, I could be wrong, but that's a conversation for him to take up with his employer.
Right. And I think also maybe it's compared to the work that he has. Could it be that? Could it be that Tony Romo maybe only does this one specific thing, whereas Stephen A. has to do other jobs attached to his contract, Dominique?
Well, I mean, you know this, Tammi Mack, because you work a lot in entertainment. It's always about your quote, right? What did you get last time? And so that's how they'd establish what you're worth. It's kind of one of those traditions. Like OJ said, the agent has to work it out with management. Yeah, they can make that argument, but you know it always comes down to star power, right? If Rihanna says one word at the Super Bowl, she could end up negotiating more money than, you know, everyone on the team if she's got the star power to do it.
Right. Yeah. The entertainment business is interesting because it's very subjective. It's not really something that you can say, well, she makes this, she makes that. Although Monique really did prove her point in that lawsuit. They settled. So I don't know. We don't know, Dominique, whether she got what she deserved or what she was asking for at all, rather than it just being a simple agreement that says, what about this?
She settled and she got paid, and now they're putting out her new special. So, and you know, she got paid more than they initially offered her, she wouldn't be doing it. So that's a W for her, for sure.
Right. Ed?
It's not just kind of clear. When you look at it, I mean, we talked about Tony Romo, and Tony Romo calls NFL, and in the sporting world, the NFL is king, and so it's king by a large margin. So for any station trying to keep a base of viewers, you kind of understand. To Stephen A. Smith's point, though, I mean, he is the #1 personality on the #1 sports-focused television show or broadcast show. He holds down a show, as OJ referenced, I think from 10 to 12 every day. For me, that's the time that I'm watching, The Business of Being Black on the Fox Soul app. Shameless plug there. But,
Thank you. Thank you.
But what he does is he keeps viewers attached to ESPN, and there's a value in that. And for whatever that is, they're able to move them around and utilize them, and there's a certain value there. I think he may be right when you start to look at it. ESPN, you start to look at over the last year, they've had some very high-profile defections, particularly among African-American women. When you start to look at Jamel Hill, Maria Taylor, even Sage Steele. So there may be something to it, but I would offer back to Stephen A. Smith, look, you've got to come forward with a few more receipts for folks to walk that wall.
Okay. Yeah. Tony Romo, I'm just checking here to make sure. Tony Romo is listed as the highest paid, and then Troy Aikman also listed. And then we have Joe Buck and Al Michaels, as I mentioned before. And they're in the, double digits as well. So, Dominique, I want to ask you, because I know this is your industry as well, though. Is it what you negotiate, or is it your star power? Which works best?
I think what you negotiate works best. because sometimes we hear about these people you never heard of, some YouTuber or some, former politician getting a fat contract. That means they had a good agent and a great lawyer. And yeah, hopefully they had some star power, but a lot of times, and you know this, Tammy, people get signed in the industry based on buzz, potential, star power that hasn't yet existed. And so that's why I think it's really what you negotiated, although the star power helps.
So, fellas, how do we feel about Russell Wilson and his $245 million contract? Was that all about the negotiations, or was that about the star power? Because has he won a game yet? I'm just curious.
Good question.
And a hush comes across the room.
Look, he's in Denver now. I'm a Raider and Ram fan. I don't care about the Broncos, but look, he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. He's been to the Super Bowl twice. He's got a demonstrated history in the league. And so the contract that he was able to negotiate is the contract he was able to negotiate, to Dominique's point. Whether the Broncos are realizing their value in it is still to be seen. I think there's a couple of years on that contract. But, as far as I'm concerned, I hope they keep losing.
Dr. Oleka?
As a Steelers fan, I couldn't agree with Ed anymore.
Y'all like, we don't care nothing about him and what they paid him. We good. Keep losing. Well, but what you mentioned though, Ed, suggests that it's not also about what you do today, but about the history and the experience and the skill and the track record that you have that also equates to how much a person pays you. Well, somebody about to pay me right now because we about to go to commercial break. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I am Tammi Mack. And the Brooklyn Nets star Kyrie Irving is getting backlash on and off the court after he tweeted a link to the film Hebrew to Negroes, which promotes anti-Semitic tropes, to his 6 million followers. Irving initially defended his actions in a post-game press conference. He said, in terms of the backlash, I should say, we're in 2022. History is not supposed to be hidden from anybody, and I'm not a divisive person when it comes to religion. I embrace all walks of life. He continued, so the claims of anti-Semitism and who are the original chosen people of God, and we go into these religious conversations, and it's a big no-no. I don't live my life that way, he said. Irving was questioned again yesterday about the anti-Semitic content in the film. Check out his response.
I respect all walks of life and embrace all walks of life. That's where I sit. I cannot be anti-Semitic if I know where I come from.
NBA Commissioner Adam Silver called Irving's anti-Semitic post a reckless decision and said he plans to meet with Kyrie next week. Kyrie Irving has received 5 days suspension, I believe it has been. He said he didn't mean to cause any harm, and he's yet to issue a formal apology, but there has been an apology issued on behalf of the team and Kyrie Irving. Let's talk about that. Dr. OJ?
Well, if you look at Kyrie Irving as an NBA superstar, he's had an interesting career arc. First, he started out 1 year at Duke, barely played there, went to the Cleveland Cavaliers, didn't win a whole lot. Then LeBron James came, he hit a big shot, ended up winning a championship, and now you see where he is now and how he's viewed and valued by the public. I think he's certainly an interesting figure. I don't agree with anything that he said with regard to this particular video. I haven't seen it. I won't watch it. But what Kyrie needs to understand is that he's living in a world, in a large media market in New York City, where people don't like the things that he's saying. He can't repeatedly, over and over and over, say things that are going to upset people, going to bother people in a significant way that's going to impact what he's supposed to be doing, which is playing and winning basketball. That's what he started out doing in the NBA, was being a great player to help teams win. Now, again, people who are athletes can have all kinds of perspectives, all kinds of beliefs. I'm not saying that he should, quote, shut up and dribble. That's not my point here. What I am saying is that if you are going to be a global brand, which he is trying to be, you have to understand that even if you hold a particular belief, it's not something you can put out there into the public and not expect repercussions. He's receiving those repercussions now, and I think he's going to have to deal with them.
Well, this is not the first time that we've had these beliefs of Kyrie Irving pop up during the whole getting your booster shot, your vaccines. Kyrie Irving did not get a vaccine and stayed out of many games during that time. How do we feel about this, Dominique?
Well, look, I believe that everyone has a right to decide whether they want to get vaccinated, and everybody has a right to believe and think as they see fit. That said, I think I agree with what OJ said. You're a public figure and you got to deal with the consequences of your words. But I would take it even a step further. I feel like we're at a time in our country that it's very important to stand against hate. And that hate includes anti-Blackness. That hate includes anti-Semitism, anti-API hate. We have to stand against hate. And that is really where we are. And it's a critical place, just as we in Los Angeles will not stop calling for disgraced Councilman Kevin De Leon and Gil Cedillo to step down because of their hate. We need that same energy against anti-Blackness, against anti-Indigenousness, and we need that same energy against anti-Semitism.
Alicia?
Yeah, I haven't seen the documentary, so I can't speak intelligently on the contents of the documentary, but they said that he's been suspended indefinitely as of a few hours ago. And I saw this Harvard study that said famous Black men have issued 123% of all apologies issued on Instagram. I'm wondering how many apologies have come the other direction on Instagram. It's just very interesting. I don't agree with forcing people to apologize, because by the time you get the apology brings hollow. If somebody really thinks what they said is wrong, they'll apologize immediately. Like, oh, okay, I didn't realize that. But if somebody's holding on to their stance, they mean what they're saying. And so for you to Toby them and get an apology, what are you doing that to appease yourself?
But he did say that he didn't hate anyone. He did denounce hate, I guess. Right. And they want a direct apology. I haven't seen the documentary either, but I wish we would hold our politicians' feet to the fire the same way we do our athletes.
Me too.
Wow. Kyrie Irving issued an apology on Instagram saying, "To all Jewish families and communities that are hurt and affected from my post, I am deeply sorry to have caused you pain, and I apologize." Ed?
I mean, listen, all of what OJ has said early on is right. Kyrie Irving occupies sort of a unique space in the athlete's world, from just sheer talent. And when you start to follow him on social media, the conversation around Kyrie is really strong on social media. He's got a really strong fan base. And then two, from an endorsement level, I believe he's one of a handful of players that has a Nike themed shoe in his name. So he's a significant athlete in that regard. To OJ's point, I mean, what he's learning in real time is that the conversation around hate speech really needs to be unequivocal in the country. I mean, to Dominique's point, whether you're talking about anti-Blackness, anti-Semitism, I think we look for it to be extinguished where we can. We just had the conversation about Twitter and the increase in the N-word on Twitter. It is such a prevalent conversation in the United States now that it's hard to ignore. I did rent this film. I rented it on Amazon. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but that is another peculiar part of this, is that you are able to rent this on a platform like Amazon. And, the profit from just this controversy to Amazon, to the author, is perplexing. There doesn't seem to be enough of an outcry in that regard. But the reason why I rented is because I haven't seen this film yet. I do want to understand what is thought to be anti-Semitic about it, right? To Alicia's point, there was a lot of ask and condemnation on Kyrie to have him apologize. I thought his statements early on were contrite, and one of them complete with a financial atonement, I think of $500,000. And so at a certain point, I'm not quite sure. Is it just the words you need to hear him say, "I'm sorry," or you need to hear him say, "I apologize"? Is there some specific text that you need to hear him say for this to go away? I say all that to say because young people, particularly African Americans, are viewing this and watching this. And in a lot of ways, we can talk right past them in this because they can see a very popular figure in Kyrie and perceive it as though he's being, quote, lynched, forced to apologize. And I think in the long run, that sort of reaction poses more trouble than it's worth.
Yeah, interesting. That's kind of what Alicia was saying when she says when you force people to apologize, it ends up being kind of a hollow position. Like, does he still hold true to whatever the rhetoric was that that he put out there? And is there some way where there can be an open conversation of dialogue? That's really what I would like to see happen. I'd like to see an open conversation of dialogue, so that we can understand, so that everyone can understand what this is. Oftentimes what I see is someone says something and then they go into this, they go into a meeting to kind of get schooled on the history, but then people continue to keep doing it. So I would like to see everyone learn those lessons that that Kyrie has to learn in terms of knowing what's wrong and what it is specifically, so that it will not happen over and over again. No one wants anybody to be anti-Semitic, nor anti-Black, nor anti-human being for that matter. So yeah, I understand what you all are saying there. So let's talk about what hit the streets in Houston not long ago, the death of rapper Takeoff. My goodness, they're still investigating, and we've got the word come down that he was shot multiple times, and this apparently was a stray bullet that killed rapper Takeoff. How do we feel about this? Because there's been a lot of outcry for rappers to speak out against violence, the very thing that some of them rap about. Alicia?
Yeah, like you said, the very thing that some of them rap about is really unfortunate. And the problem is just the prevalence of guns in the U.S. It's just too many guns, and everybody's settling their issues by pulling out a gun and actually firing it in a crowd of people. How can you say you love your people when you're that reckless with everybody's lives? I mean, it's frustrating. It's sad. It keeps happening over and over again. When will it stop? I just don't. It's so senseless. These guys aren't even making it to 40 years of age.
You say 40, he was 28.
Oh my gosh.
So they're not making it to 30.
Yeah.
To be honest, they are not making it to 30. A lot of them have died in their 20s, early to late. And it always makes me think about Biggie and Tupac, who both died at the age of 24. Dominique?
Yeah, I think that's right. But I also think we need to look at the context of America, where we do have homicide up. People are under a tremendous amount of pressure due to the pandemic and all of this economic and psychological problems that come with that. I was talking to rapper Miles Lowe on my show, and he said, well, is it fair to blame hip hop? But he also made a really good point, which is that when you talk about the Migos, you're talking about mainstream pop. Even Nipsey Hussle was sort of underground until before he was murdered. Takeoff, that's a huge mainstream pop portfolio. So now this has got to be addressed on a different level as far as us as a nation facing our problem with violence that goes well beyond hip hop.
Yeah, Tupac was 25. Ed?
Yeah, so it is. There's so many issues when you look at this. I mean, I to the point that you were just making. I mean, it's a very particular loss for particularly the city of Atlanta. I mean, Biggie for Brooklyn and Tupac and Nipsey for Los Angeles. Their reach in Atlanta, a lot of people know locally, and so condolences first off to his family and to the other members of the group and their immediate circles. Earlier in the show, we were counting people's nickels, right? I mean, we were talking about Stephen A's salary, and we do this with NBA players, and very often they are back into events or experiences where people know very well how much money they have. They don't go necessarily to great lengths to hide it, with the displays of jewelry and whatnot. But those sort of situations call for yourself to defend yourself. And in doing so, you see the guns, which Alicia referenced, as being far too prevalent. And it creates this environment where guns are very, very present.
Yeah. Let me get Dr. Oleka in real quick, Ed, on this one.
I just think it's sad for the industry. As everyone was talking about before, from the human element, that's absolutely true. But I think it's incredibly sad for the hip hop industry, which is designed to pull, most particularly, young Black folks out of struggle by giving them a voice, to use their art to move their lives forward. And what's going to be taken away is all the art that we don't get to hear from Takeoff because he's gone.
Yeah, speaking of young black kids, the Washington Commanders aren't officially for sale, but they have reportedly already received an offer. Byron Allen is reportedly prepared to bid to buy the team. This is Allen's second attempt this year to acquire a National Football League franchise. The first bid was for the Denver Broncos, and if Allen succeeds in buying the Commanders, he would be the first black majority owner of an NFL team, potentially easing some of the hits taken by the league around race and social justice. So talk about the importance of young black kids not only seeing us play the game, but also seeing us own the game. I got a feeling, look, if they don't let Byron Allen bid for it, somebody gonna get sued, because Byron Allen is gonna sue you, baby. He gonna sue. How important is this, Dominique? Take us on out with these 30 seconds.
I think it's super important. Byron Allen will soon own everything. I know Magic Johnson is trying to get a piece of the Raiders, but this is one way we can get that diversity in coaching, that diversity in the head office and in ownership, which is so important, that we not just be workers in the game, but that we be profiteers at the big kids table. So congratulations, Byron Allen.
And thank you, Dr. Oleka, Alicia, Dominique, and Ed Sanders for participating in another Business of Being Black episode with Tammi Mack on Fox Soul. We'll see y'all later.